Hello and welcome to part 1 of linking parameters in Inventor 2017. We're going to show a few methods for sharing dimensional values across your part files and how to make quick changes to those values from one location. In this case, we're using an iLogic form to change the various section lengths and the thickness of the metal used in the individual parts that make up this robot finger assembly. And we'll show how to create one of those forms later in the playlist. So this first method involves creating a master part file, which is just a regular Inventor part file. And we're going to use this file as a 2D layout of the entire assembly. So we can make some quick decisions about sizes of components, how the design is going to function. It's basically a pretty bare skeleton of the overall design, but it contains all the dimensions we're going to be using and sharing throughout the model. Now, the reason we're not seeing many dimensions on this sketch is because each component has been turned into a sketch block, as you can see here. It just makes it a little easier to handle and keeps things neat without all the dimensions taking over the screen. As you can see, if we edit one of the blocks, all the dimensions are there in case we need to make any dimensional changes visually. And we've given all the important dimensions, the ones we know we might be sharing, or ones we know are probably going to be changing at some point, some parameter names. There's a second sketch here to contain the important dimensions that exist in the top view. And again, you can see the important ones have been named to make things easier for us later on. But the main thing here is just to show we have a single part file that contains all the parameters named, so any changes we're going to make to the assembly will be done at this master part file. Now, when it comes to making the individual part files that make up the assembly, one of the first things you're going to want to do is go to your parameter table, and obviously there are no parameters existing yet because this is just a blank part as of yet. What we're going to do though is click on the link button down here, make sure files of type is set to Inventor files, and then we're going to browse to the master part file we already created that contains all the important parameters. Now we can see a list of all the parameters in that file, and here's where you can see the benefit of giving them meaningful names. So we just click on the parameters we want to use in this particular part file. You'll see the symbol here turns yellow when selected. And now the parameters show up under user parameters with the path to the linked file shown here. And if we forgot to add a particular parameter at this point, it's no problem. Just right click on the path and edit, find the one we want and add it to the list. So these parameters are now usable inside this part file, but at the moment they're just sitting there dormant. So we need to create some geometry for this particular part. It's going to be one of the metal side plates for the second section of the robot finger. So we'll just finish this up with some constraints. And then when we place our first dimension, we're looking for this button here, and then list parameters, which gives us a list to pick from all named parameters that exist in this file. So we're going to choose diameter 2, then the same for the next circle here, list parameters, diameter 3, and we'll give a distance between the two circles, list parameters, and length 2. So let's make another couple of circles here to represent the pivot holes. So we'll make them equal size and then give one of them the dimension, link parameters, and pivot hole. And now when we come to extrude this sketch out, basically anywhere in Inventor you can input a value. In this case it's the extruded depth value. You'll be able to list parameters, or if you already know the name you can just type it in. But this is showing us the thickness value isn't there because we forgot to link to it in the parameter table. That's not a problem. Remember, we can just go back to our parameters, right click and edit on the path here and add the parameter we need. So we can now use that value for our extruded depth, and there we are. So you would do exactly the same process for each of the parts that make up this assembly, with each one linking back to the master part file, which is where you would go to make any of the dimensional changes, which would then update the linked parts, and ultimately the assembly and any associated drawings.